Hey and welcome to the Skippy Guide on Mousport. This track is incredibly fun, but also incredibly dangerous in the first laps on cold tires. I have a tip for you in case you don't feel confident with them and are afraid to lose the car. Just never step fully on the throttle in the dangerous corners, accelerate only with roughly 70 to 80% and the car should remain stable. You can slowly push further and after 3 to 4 laps when the tires are warmed up, you can take all exits flat out again. This week I have 2 setups for you. One which is built at the limit and it's also the one I drove the lap with. Maybe you can spot it on the side pods. The setup really doesn't leave much room for mistakes. If you go off into the grass or touch any curbs you are not supposed to touch, you will pick up minor damage. I had no issues with it and didn't lose any pace even after driving up to 20 laps, but I can imagine that you can get into troubles if you are not always 100% on point and hit a bad curb every now and then. That's why I've included an additional, safer setup with more clearance. You can find both in the database on Discord, the link is in the description below. Approach turn 1 on the outside. You can use the power lines as marker and turn in right after you pass them. Don't brake here, instead you want to lift slightly right at the same time you start turning in. Once the car points towards the curb, you want to fully engage the throttle again. Attack the curb, aim for a smooth line and power through the turn. The exit can be tricky. I wouldn't recommend you to push that far in the race unless you are confident with your car. Touching the grass will spin you and send you right into the wall. Turn 2 is coming up and we want to work only with the throttle again. Lift shortly before you reach the crest and turn in. It's important to attack the inside, which is difficult at first because it's hidden, but after a few practice laps you get a feeling for it. I know it sounds ridiculous at first, and you will need a lot of trust into your car before you will be able to pull it off, but you want to go flat out again right after you pass the crest and keep pushing the car to the inside. By the way, this is one of the moments where your car will spin when your tires are cold, so be aware of it. After a few laps you have to trust them, step on it and push the car towards the exit. Your goal for the next turn is to carry as much speed as possible onto the next straight. In order to achieve this, you have to mind 2 things. First, don't be too aggressive on the brakes. You don't want to shift too much load to the front of the car. A gentle touch is enough to shift into the 3rd gear, and once the car is turning, you want to be back on the throttle again. Second, you want to aim for a wide line and hit a late apex. I will explain what it means in a second. Hitting a late apex means that the moment where you are closest to the inside of the turn occurs as late as possible. For this turn it means that the moment where you want to be closest to the curb should be right around here, shortly before the curb ends or right at its end, not before. If you get close to the curb earlier, you will have a wide exit which will force you to lift. You should also avoid touching it because it's steep and will cost you some momentum. The next turn is flat out. Approach it on the left or middle left side of the track and I would recommend you to shift into 5th gear before you reach the bridge. It makes the car more stable on the way down and gives you more control in case you have to counter steer. We are heading towards the most difficult turn. Try to position the car as far on the left as possible. Your marker for braking is the change in the surface of the track. You want to turn in right when you reach the dark area and hit the brakes hard. This turn is quite complex, that's why we will take a look at it once, before we come back to this spot and I explain how to deal with it. As mentioned, turn in, hit the brakes hard and shift all the way down into 2nd gear. You want to attack the inside and give the car a small push on the throttle when you are about to pass the curb. This serves 2 things. It helps you to balance the car when you drive over the crest, and it helps you to adjust your speed because you want to push to the outside of the track. Stay in second gear and work only with the throttle again. You want to be patient and wait for the perfect exit. When you feel that your wheels got full grip again, and when you see that you are going on the correct line, then you got the perfect moment to step on the throttle and accelerate onto the long straight. If your last exit was perfect, you will max out on RPMs quite early here. But it's the same story like last week in Interlagos. Don't shift up when you're going uphill. Use the high RPMs in 4th gear to power up the hill and shift into 5th gear once you reach the crest. The last sector is coming up, and besides minor adjustment, you generally don't want to use the brakes here again. Turn in from the outside, lift right around the area when you pass the end of the white wall, and shift into 4th gear immediately after you pass the curb. Shifting early into 4th gear doesn't only slow you down, it also gives you the opportunity to get back on the throttle, and that's what we want. Engage the throttle right after shifting down to somewhere between 50 and 70%. The acceleration will push your car to the inside of the track and allow you to exit the turn on the far right. We will do the same before the next left-hander. Shift down into 3rd gear to slow the car down with the engine brake and get back on the throttle right away to attack the apex and exit on the far left. That way you get a nice right entry for the last turn. You don't need to shift or brake. All you need to do now is lift briefly again and aim for a tight run around the curb. Try to be early on the throttle and get a nice run into the next lap. That's the guide. As usual, you can find all lap files together with the telemetry and setups on Discord. The cockpit lab with my inputs will come up next. I want to thank you for watching, and big thanks to everyone who's supporting my content on Twitch, here on YouTube or Patreon. I wish you all the best for your next races and see you next time!